I'm just watching Ace.
Taking shots. Took out the whole squad.
And they don't stop coming in, 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 they don't stop coming. Dude, I need some shotgun ammo.
Need to recharge my shields. Killed an enemy.
Uh-oh, I have to reload.
That rings far. I know.
Watch this. Boom! Aw. Never mind. Don't watch. Unwatch.
Replicator incoming. Got the whole squad.
Ah! Oh god, they have
so
a
not
double
me.
sniper out there.
Healing
If we drop car, go 301? Or we go 301 car, maybe? Oh shit, they're here. Low key, I wish I kept the Mastiff. Can't lie.
I'm taking shots.
Okay, I lied. It's I was straight coping. The flatline will never be better than the
Need to recharge
301.
my shields.
Oh my god, he's on the roller. Oh my god! The other team's here, the other team's here, the other team's here, the other... Bloodhound, help!
Enemy shield broken.
Yo, other team, I know you guys can shoot these people right now. I did all the hard work for you to literally just... Come on.
1 minute until ring close. Made a hit. Enemy shield.
I'm gonna run out of ammo.
Whole squad down.
Okay, Prey got
Good.
ammo.
Only one more squad left.
You fuck it, dude. He has energy. They're confirmed 1 roller player out of maybe 3 rollers. So it's like, you
Recharging
can't
my
go near
shields.
these guys.
Danger move.
He knows about me.
Good. It's not far. They spotted me. I'm taking
He's winging.
shots.
Lifeline, I will give you money if you just res him right now.
Easy. Arc star out. Enemy shield broken.
W third.
Enemy taken out. Getting shot. 30 seconds.
Alright. Okay, now it's just a wait out the Bloodhound angle.
I'm taking shots. Broken enemy shield. Need to recharge my shields. Just 10 seconds.
Does he even move? He popped all and he just... Okay, never mind, he scanned. I was about to say, bro has not scanned once.
Throw my grenade out. Recharging my shields.
Bro.
God,
Can you go
I'm
back and get,
sleepy right
14
now.
digi up or what? This guy's just slinging longbow shots.
Broken.
Double spray was a little bit boring, I can't lie. But fuck it, we ball.
You are the
Little
Apex
damage
champion.
for him, little juicer. I'm guessing 13 kills, 5.2 damage. Oh wait, 18 really. 5.2 on right on the fucking mark.
I am still confused. What do I want to do right now? And hey, look, it's us right here. This is oddly satisfying to me. I just like seeing like people, you know, play tuna. I don't know why it's so satisfying. It's just fun to watch. It's mesmerizing. This is a shark. This is not tuna. That is a full-on shark. That is not tuna. What the fuck? They pulled the truck out. And it this is the first time seeing this. They pulled out a truck because there was a shark. Now I want fish. Let's just get something real quick here. Their knives are so sharp. It's so satisfying. Just seeing like the fish get cut open and then wow, that it just falls. Their knives are so sharp. I crave to have a knife that sharp. No lie. But I don't really cook. At least not anymore. You know, I used to cook at home, but ever since having like on-site classes, mom got someone to do the chores for us. He just cuts through bone like that. Jesus. Sure, it wasn't a smooth cut, but he was cutting through bones. He didn't even hold the tuna. He just he just went in there, cut through it. Ah, just look at how sharp that. And he's just cutting like it's butter. Okay, so best practices is you have to cut that really dark part out because it's basically blood, and you don't want that. You know, I will want to know how that tastes. Is he still cutting through a bone? I heard like snapping. No, that's not bone, right? Is that bone? I don't know. See this like brown part? Best practice is that they have to take that out because it's blood. I want to know what that tastes like. Do you like these guys? You know when they trim off like parts of the tuna? Well, it's technically usable. They just have to trim it off for presentation. Do they keep those and like take it home with them? Not the blood ones. Like, okay, this is good, right? You can technically still use this for something, right? You could probably use it to cook something. Do they keep it or do they just throw it away? Is there any use for the blood part of it? I'm actually really curious. You see how like there's a really thin part to it? They would probably trim that off, but it's still usable. So do they keep those parts? It'd be a waste if they did, right? Of course, they're not gonna be using all of the tuna. It's gonna be like kept in a chiller or something, and then used sold on a different day. But then what about the parts that they don't sell, but would still be usable? Because that would be sick. Oh, like this one. Shit. So he cuts off like a certain portion of it, right? Oh, he already cut it here. So see how he cuts this portion? Are they gonna sell this part? He just puts it to the side and he just flips this, puts it on the tray. So what happened to the part that cut off? Is that the one they sold? I don't actually know. I want to know. This is where they sashimi it. Oh, okay, so this just shows from cutting it to cooking. Oh, that's so fatty. I want one. I want to taste sashimi. I want to try sashimi. It looks so good. You season it a bit, and then you get the fatty one. Gosh, that has flavor. That has flavor. Because it's fat. Fat is flavor. But too much fat is not good. This is way too satisfying. I really hope I have a camera right now, but I don't have my camera with me. Oh, I need coffee. I want some. I want to eat some. Do they keep these parts? Like, do they eat it? Are these edible? What are these? Oh, what's that? I didn't see. I'm not gonna. Oh, they butchered that guy's face. Is that right? It sounds so wrong for me to say butchering a fish. Just let's look it up. Yeah. Can you butcher a fish? So it is the code butcher. A fishmonger. Well, everything is fine in moderation. As long as you don't overdo it, you're probably fine. College is such a stressful, not really stressful. It's more of a there's a lot of things that you have to do in college. When they say college is hard, when I was a kid, I thought it was like hard. But now that I'm in college, I'm actually third year. I've come to realize that it isn't really hard. It's really just so time consuming that the hard part is managing everything you want to do, everything you need to do within a certain time. I think that's the hardest part of it. But everything else just comes down to it being very time consuming, time constrained. I'm being quiet because I'm talking to someone. But yeah, like I said, college was. I would say that college is not really hard. It just comes down to it being time consuming. And when they said that in college, pick something that you want to do that you like, or else you'll regret it, could not be farther from the truth. I mean, could not be closer to the truth. Pick something you would enjoy doing. Because I swear, in college, because you're so time constrained by everything, you would want to be doing something that you'd at least enjoy doing in that time. And I'm talking to a classmate of mine about our project. That's why I'm so quiet and I'm typing. And if you hear me talk to myself, it's because I'm would it say thinking out loud? But yeah, I'm whenever I like speak to someone, I kind of talk in my mind, and then I don't realize that I'm actually talking IRL. Sometimes people think I'm talking to myself, even though I really am talking to myself. My headset is starting to clamp onto my head a little too much again. But they're probably my friends are all they're playing League. They actually came back from League, which is weird for me. I never expected them to go back to League. Although I guess to be fair, I think I'm one of the few people in our friend group that actually grew up in FPS. They kind of grew up in like other genres of games. Way more genres of games. They've probably been gaming for longer than I have. But I guess shooters wasn't really their first kind, so that's why I'm one of the few who still stuck to shooters. Until now, I still love shooters. I think they're cool. I think shooters are fun. They're kind of stressful, but it's fun, right? Because with shooters, it kind of gets so random at an extent, right? But things happen here and there. Not everyone's gonna be playing the same genre of games as I would. My friends are the ones who you would like think of when you say gamer, right? They've played a whole bunch of games. They are probably the ones you would talk to when it actually comes to gaming. They're that much better. They're just so much better than me in every game that we've played. They adapt better, they learn the game better, faster, and they end up just being better. I, on the other hand, just grew up in the genre. Casually talking about how good my friends are in gaming while we watch TV. Yes, that's what I'm doing. But yeah, my friends are just so much better in game. I could invite them for a game, and if they dig it, they'll probably play it for like a month, maybe. More or less, right? And then they just start getting so much better. It's insane how good they are. They make jokes about me being better than them, but I swear they may say I'm better, but no, I'm really not. I'm just there. I'm just good enough to play with them, but I'm not as good as them. It's like I'm the minimum for the skill level that would play with them, you know? I would say though, I do have my own my fair share of moments where like insane. They're just so much better. Like Farlight 84. We've been playing Farlight 84 quite frequently these past days. And when I say I played first, I played I was the first one to play amongst us, our friends, I guess, I think. And I kinda did great, right? My aim kind of translated. But then they played it so much as well and they learned the game. Now they're so much better than me. I can't stress that enough. They're just so good. I'm actually envious of them. They're so good at it. And it's not just one game. They're like good in any game they play. You make them play League, they're hella good. Dota, they're good. Put them in a shooter, they're all better than. Even in the one thing that I'm confident at. I don't know. Anyway, that's kind of enough for any game. Oh god. This one. Or what? Okay, we'll watch this. I love this dude. This guy's, I don't know, I find him funny. He's not really funny, but I find him funny.
Fish wholesale, and I'm here to show you how to prep every shellfish. When I prepare shellfish,
I forgot that I didn't share
large, heavy
the
back shellfish
stream
a
with
smaller,
my friend.
curved, stiff knife for trimming,
Hey,
as well as a thin, flexible
someone's
knife
watching.
that is
Hey, what's
effective
up?
around shells and other
What's up,
intricacies.
dude?
It actually has a really nice feature where
Oh wait, no,
it extends.
that was me.
Lobster
Never
and crab
mind.
pickers, an oyster knife, which can get into the hinge really well, a clam knife, a shrimp deveiner, a shellfish scissor, which is great for cutting through lobster tails without damaging any of the flesh. I have an offset spatula, and for special circumstances, we're going to use a black light. Blue crab. So this is a blue crab, definitely native to East Coast waters. First things first, we're gonna steam this crab roughly 6 minutes. It'll turn bright red and it'll be ready to pick out all the meat. We'll pick the crab up, starting with its front claws. We'll just pinch straight from where it connects to the body, down and out. Same with the other side, down and out. And we'll do the same for all the legs and the back swimmers here. So now we're left with just the body. We'll flip the crab upside down and lift up the apron here. And this will just snap right off, exposing a opening there where we'll get our thumbs in and just peel off that top shell. Now here we have some gills.
I never understood
some
how
other
to eat
organs.
crab.
We're just going to remove those.
Last time I tried
This is
to
the
eat
face
crab,
plate
I
as
barely
well,
got
so
any meat out of
just
it.
peel right off. Clean out any excess organs from the center cavity, and we're just going to crack this right in half. Going to peel back these little layers of cartilage that hold the meat in, and using now our little picking tool to just very gently start pulling out that really delicate, sweet crab meat. The meat will be covered with a super thin membrane. It just really easily peels right off. And you essentially just want to get your skewer into any little crevice that you find and pulling straight out and getting out every little last bit
That's
of meat.
all the crab meat
That's your
in that
body.
crab,
Now with the
aside from the
claws,
claws and stuff. Oh, or the
separate
claws
out
now.
the pinchers, the legs, tiny little knuckles. We're just going to come in on the most rounded part and just start snipping away. Crack that shell open and pry that claw meat right out of there.
That's all the
So,
meat you're gonna get from a
leg.
crab.
There really isn't much meat in these little back legs here. The best thing I would do with these is just suck them dry. It's really delicious. That's pretty much how you break down a blue crab. Soft shell crab. This is a blue crab that has molted. So basically they're changing shells, and during this phase, their shells are soft. You can actually eat the whole crab this way, shell and all. Currently, they are out of season. So right now we have a frozen soft shell crab. The head of the crab is here, and that has a bunch of organs in it that we won't be eating today. Your first step is going to be just to snip right behind the eyes there. Discard that section. After that, we'll flip the crab over. We'll remove this apron section here and lift up actually the top shell and expose the gills here. And we'll just trim those off. Same thing to the other side. So this is a completely dressed, ready to eat soft shell crab. This thing deep fried in a sandwich, perfect. Dungeness crab. These are a West Coast species of crab. Really, really sweet.
If there
really
was
delicious,
one
really
crab I
tender.
would try to eat, it
Purchasing
would be
all
probably the
live shellfish,
huge
you wanna make
ones,
sure
but
that
that's
they're
gonna be fucking
alive.
expensive.
Look at their eyes,
But
make sure
still.
that they're convex and round, not
I would
concave,
not want
sunken
to
in.
spend
People tend to steam them
money
mostly and
on
wanna
something
aim
that I would
for 10 minutes per
barely
pound.
fit
You
in
can
one
add on
spoon,
about 5
you know?
minutes per pound after that. So this is a cooked Dungeness crab. We're gonna pick the crab up, and we'll start by just breaking claws off. From the joint down here, we're just gonna pull down and twist out.
Because
Do
at
that
least this
for
one, you
all of
actually
these.
know you're
You wanna
gonna
really
get
make sure
some
you're at
meat.
the joint when you do this. Now that the legs are removed, we're gonna start and just focus in on the head. Flip it over, and we're going to remove what is called the apron of the crab. This just pulls right out really easily. And now that leaves you with a cavity. Put your thumbs in like that, and just pull back the head. This is what's called the mustard of the crab. And this is really delicious, so do not throw it out and just hold it off to the side for now. So now we're just gonna focus in on the meat that is in the actual body itself. So we'll be taking off these gills here, which you do not wanna eat. Any extra pieces that are kind of getting in your way with your hands for now. This is the mouth organs. We'll just snap those off easily. Now, crack this crab in half, which you can do with your hands. You'll just turn it away from you and just pull apart. One more time. So essentially you're cracking this into quarters. Once you have it broken down into quarters, you'll start to see there are little cavities that all contain the meat. With your skewer, go in there and just scoop around the cavities. They have sections of what almost looks like really thin plastic that separates all that meat. This easily can get into the meat itself, so you want to be careful when you're doing this to kind of make sure that you're only getting the meat out of the crab.
This is still not a lot of meat, honestly.
Just gonna take them out. This first little digit here we can just remove and toss, and then we'll just break it down on the joints. I'll snap one way until it's free, and then coming out the other way. And ideally this will take out any pieces of cartilage. Scoop it out. So that's a leg. Now we'll do a claw. Again, putting pressure on the opposite way of the joint. Remove this section first, then the knuckle, and then scissors, and we're just gonna cut. Go through the knuckle, through the claw.
If I were to choose whether I would
Going on
lobster or crabs, I'll probably choose lobster.
this leg. And that's how you pick crab legs. A great way to find any extra pieces of shell that may be stuck in your crab meat is a black light. I think that was everything. Maine lobster. You always want to have a live product. With lobsters specifically, and most shellfish generally, you never want to be eating a lobster that's been dead for more than 24 hours. The meat within their bodies decays very quickly, so essentially having a live lobster in front of you tells you, I know this is safe, I know this is fresh, I know this is going to be delicious. Before you cook it, you're going to want to kill it in the most humane way possible. Put your knife in at the base of the head where the body meets, press straight down, and just crack down. There may be some residual movement, but that's just the nervous system firing. You can continue your cut if you wanted, straight down the middle if you were looking to grill the tails, but either way, your lobster is now ready to be prepped. Take off these bands, which are just there to protect you from getting pinched. Pick the lobster up by the body, hold it pretty firmly. You're gonna wanna get the tail pretty much where the joint meets the body. Twist one way, twist another way just to loosen it up, and then go a full rotation with it while pulling out. So there you'll have your lobster tail. You'll come around to the front side of the lobster, and grabbing the claw from where it connects to the body, pinch right there and just twist and pull out. Same thing to the other side, and then these small legs separate out one by one. So here you have your tail, your pincher, your crusher, and your legs. We'll take the claws, and again, where that joint meets here, you're just gonna wanna use your thumbs to just kind of crack and open. Like there, and then you have a knuckle, which will just twist right off. Same thing to the pincher claw. So there you have a lobster fully broken down and ready to cook. Cooked Maine lobster. So here I have a cooked lobster, and I'm gonna show you how to take all of the meat out. So
I
starting with
just
the
remember I
lobster,
did mention
from
lobster
the
just
joints,
earlier, but yes,
down, and
I would
twist
still
it.
want to eat this than a
Out,
crab.
and going to the back tail. Give it a twist one way and finish it out the other
The
way.
way I see lobster is just
Legs, same
oversized shrimps. I don't know why I do that, but
to get the tail
yes.
meat out in the easiest way. These back fins here, they kind of peel right off by just snapping them back, and you'll see already the tail meat is starting to expose itself. Holding the lobster tail between your fingers in both hands, give it a squeeze one time, and then you'll turn it away from you and pull outwards. This should free up the entire tail, leaving nothing inside. Moving on to the crusher claw, pull this claw down on its joint away. As soon as you hear that crack, pull up on the other side to free up the bottom half, and just give it like a little twist as it comes out, and you should leave the claw meat still attached to the claw. From here, we can separate out the knuckle, and then again from the leg joint. With the crusher claw, use a heavy back knife and just give it a smack right on the fattest part there. Same thing on the other side. Once you have those two sides cracked, you can pretty much just take your hand.
Another friend of mine is
Careful not
asking
to
about
destroy the meat
volleyball.
on the inside, wiggle that claw right out. The same thing to the pincher, pull it straight out. For the knuckle meat, you can use a specialized tool like this, specifically made for scooping out lobster meat. Go in through one of the openings, run the tip of it along the edge of the shell, trying to stay as tight as possible and not break into any of the meat. You can
Look at how
go to
much
the
more
other side
meat
and
there
you
is
can just push and
on a
shove that
lobster
knuckle meat
than a
right
crab.
for the remaining parts of the leg, stick a skewer, the end of a spoon, something thin and non-flexible, in to this first joint here, and you can kind of pop right out. And that meat comes right out just like that. An often underutilized part of the lobster is actually their legs. People think that there's little to no meat in them and they don't see it as a worthwhile project to take on. It's actually really easy and pretty fun. You have a rolling pin, you lay these out flat on a cutting board, and kind of like toothpaste, you can just squeeze that meat out. The meat just squeezes right out. So this is a lobster fully picked. Your crusher, your pincher, your knuckles, your leg meats, and then your remainder leg meat and your tail. Crawfish. This is a live crawfish. They're really fun and easy to make and eat. So if you're doing a crawfish boil, I would definitely suggest maybe 10 to 15 minutes for a big pot of them. Just let them cook with everything and pull them out once they're bright red. So here we have our cooked crawfish. They're like mini lobsters. So what you want to do is separate that tail from the body, hold on to the tail, and just give it a twist. This is what you eat on a crawfish, but it's not the only thing you necessarily enjoy. You want to make sure to suck out all of these delicious head juices. It's just delicious. So for the tail, these little back fins back here, peel those off quickly. Ideally, that will also remove any sort of intestinal tract. You can just peel them right out of their shell, super fast and easy. Simple as that. Delicious. Langostino. Langostino is actually a catch-all term for what is a type of squat lobster. We are going to remove these back set of fins off the tail, pull right back, and just twist them off. The meat from the tail is exposed. Grabbing it in each of its sections between two fingers, I'm just going to squeeze until I hear a crack. I'm going to do that for each little segment here. This one actually has some really gorgeous blue eggs underneath it. Continue to peel the shell. Basically, this thing will just peel right off in individual segments, all the way down.
Isn't that
We'll do the
illegal
same
though?
thing to the other
When
side. Once that's
when an
done, you
animal is
flip it
pregnant,
over
you can't
and
really
start
hunt them?
peeling it back and just revealing that really gorgeous flesh.
I don't know.
Snap that bottom membrane and just very
Like
gently.
it's like a preservation thing, right?
And you
I'm not
left
one to like
an absolutely
study
gorgeous
this.
Langostino. I would just barely poach this thing, or really ideally just serve it raw like this. American white shrimp. We have the head on with this guy. So what we'll do, just grab the head with one hand, grab the tail with the other hand, and you're just gonna twist it off. I have a shrimp deveiner. Flatten the shrimp out in your hand and extend it. You're gonna go all along the top shell of the shrimp and then come out right before the tail. And now, with our hands, we can just go in and just remove it. Segment by segment, exposing where the intestinal tract will be, making sure there's nothing there, and there you will have a peeled and deveined shrimp. Prawn. Prawns and shrimp, very similar. Prawns have an extra set of pinchers right up in the front. We're going to peel, devein, and today we're going to take it one step further, and I'm going to show you how to butterfly the prawn as well. First things first, we are going to remove the head by holding onto the head and the tail separately and just twisting off. For the prawn tail, we're going to use our deveiner. We're going to go in straight at the top of the shell and just follow all the way down. Then with our hands, we're just going to come back and peel everything off.
I don't know why I'm still watching this.
Tool to open
I'm mesmerized by this. I don't know, it's satisfying.
and just remove that as well. Now you'll see intestinal tract, some other organs in here, and we're just going to use our hands to just make sure we get all of those out. And now that we have it cleaned up, take the sharp part of our shrimp knife here, and right where that intestinal tract was, we're just going to follow that line, being careful not to cut all the way through the underside of the prawn. Now once you have it opened up, you can cut a little bit on one side, a little bit on the other side. Just very shallow cuts here until the prawn lays flat. And that's how you butterfly a prawn. Butterflying is particularly great for even quick cooking, but these certainly lend themselves well to being grilled shell on. You can broil them, bake them, boil them, steam them. It's just a great product to work with. Sea scallop. Live sea scallops are bivalves, which essentially means they have two shells, a top shell and a bottom shell, which are joined right at the end with a hinge. Locate the top shell, which is always going to be more rounded, and the bottom shell will always be a little more flat. Enter the scallop in from the back shell, not the top shell. I like to stand my scallop up on the hinge, locate where the gap is, use my knife to really wedge it open, and my fingers to hold it there. I'll stick my flexi knife underneath the eyes, peel them back slightly, locate the muscle, and really staying tight to the back shell and going slow. I'll just wiggle my knife straight down until it frees open that muscle. This lip on the outside is actually where they have a large number of eyes. You don't want to be eating any of that. You're gonna peel back the eyes, hold on to that membrane, and just pull everything out. So now you're left with the main muscle attached to the bottom shell. The muscle's always on one side of the scallop, slightly more than the other. So you want to get on that closer side. Using something flexible, in a swooping motion, press down pretty hard with your knife, and the scallop will slide right out. And then you have a live sea scallop. Duxbury oyster. There are lots of different types of oysters out there. Generally speaking, there's one way to shuck them. You have a flat side, and then you have a cup that holds the meat. So you're gonna wanna turn the cup down on your cutting board and get a good grip on it flat. And you'll see there's a hinge here with a bit of a gap. Take your shucking knife and just get it into that gap. To get a little bit deeper, you're gonna wanna put some pressure going this way towards the front of the oyster while also wiggling. But you don't want to be pressing so hard that if you slip, you have a bad accident. There's no rush with this. You'll feel it. And once the knife is stuck in the oyster, give it another little wiggle just to crack the oyster open slightly. Take the knife out and come along this side closest to you with just the tip of your knife. You're going to be wiggling and staying very tight to that top shell until you cut the first muscle holding here. You'll do the same thing on the other side. You should have a fairly clean oyster. There's one more muscle down here that's also holding the meat onto the bottom half of the shell. So you'll come in, careful not to spill too many juices, and you'll just sort of free up that one side. And there you go. A shucked.
This was the thing that
Ready to go.
Mr.
East Coast
Bean
oysters are
ate in that
definitely
one
a
movie,
favorite
right?
amongst a lot of people, especially here on the East Coast. They have a higher salinity to them. They're more briny, so that's going to equal more salt in the flavor of your oyster. Bay water sweets. These come from the West Coast out of Washington State. Same as always, the shells on these can be a little brittle, so you will want to take extra caution, and their hinges sometimes are covered by extra pieces of shell that kind of come up. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle until you start to feel yourself about to get in, and you just pop. You're all freed up. And there you have a shucked West Coast oyster. I could definitely crush a dozen of these easily. European flat, also sometimes known as Bouillon oysters. First step for these is to remove the band. So you find the hinge, right where the two shells come, just to not leak out all of those juices. Free up that bottom muscle. And there you have a European flat shucked oyster. I don't like these oysters, but I'm gonna taste it. Yeah. All right. It's like licking a battery. Prince Edward Island. It's like licking a battery. Prince Edward Island mussel. These mussels come from Prince Edward Island off the east coast of Canada. One important thing, if it's alive, it should be tightly shut. Or if it's open a little bit, pretty much as soon as you touch it or tap it or give it a squeeze or something like that, it should shut up by itself. Within the mussel, there's probably going to be a little bit of sand and grit. So definitely take at least a minimum of an hour to purge your mussels and give them time to release that sand. Your next step is essentially going to be removing the beard of the mussel, which is what the mussel uses to attach onto rocks, or if they're farmed, onto the ropes that they're hanging from. You'll find it on the flat end of the mussel. Kind of looks like hairs. So you're gonna wanna grab onto those, get a good grip on them as you wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Once you have the beard exposed a little bit more, you'll pinch it between your two fingers, really focus on the wiggling, 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 and then it'll just pop right out. And your mussels are ready to cook. Hard shell clams. Depending on where you're from, you're gonna call them something different. A little neck, a count neck, a cocktail clam. Some people will call this a top neck, a cherry. Slight gap within it. Set my knife in that hinge, squeeze, and sort of wiggle a little bit until you find that opening. It's gonna wanna be pretty tightly closed. So you're just gonna pop it open slightly. Once you have that gap ready, you'll come in along the sides, just scraping the very top of the clam. Cut one of the mussels that's holding it on that side, and you'll do the same exact thing on the other side. Stay really tight to that top shell until you feel that pop. Once you do, you're gonna scrape that top shell until it just pops right open. Separate from one bottom hinge here, one bottom hinge on this side, free up that meat, and you have a shuck from the shell, and make it really easy to work with. So after blanching, you'll see that the clam has opened up. These clams burrow deep into the ground. This portion here, the siphon or the neck, is what actually comes out of the sand to retrieve water and food. So we'll start with that facing upwards. Facing the clam towards you with your clam knife, you're just gonna rub along the sides and just make sure that the clam is completely separated from the shell itself. And they just fall right out after a quick blanch. You can see an extra membrane here. Peel that right off of the siphon portion. You'll see a set of gills right here, a couple of other organs. We can just peel all of that away with our clam knife. And for the neck, we can just scrape away any dark bits on both sides. You'll want to ensure that there is no sand or grit stuck in the siphon. Cut it right in half, slightly, just to take a peek inside. Give it a quick scrape. Once you have all of these cleaned, the clam is out and trimmed. This is ready for your chowder. It's ready for frying. It's ready to eat. Razor clam. The meat is very delicate on these razors, so when I prepare razor clams, I like to use a blunt object, nothing really too sharp. So I will take a offset spatula. There's, again, a top shell and a bottom shell. Find the gap. You'll see some meat being attached to the membrane on the top shell, same on the side shell. Enter in really tight onto that top shell and just start peeling away the membrane. Making sure you take your time to get everything off. Once that side's free, flip it. We're gonna do the same exact thing to the other side. And once it's open, the top shell should just peel right off. Scrape out anything that's stuck. You have the foot, you have the siphon, and when you flip it, you'll see the belly and the intestinal tract of the clam. I'm gonna grab a small knife, and we're just going to trim away the belly, the foot, just tougher, more nasty parts that you don't necessarily want to eat. Occasionally there are grits of sand within the siphon itself. Straighten it out as best you can, and using a sharp knife, not cutting all the way through, just being very gentle to open up that siphon. You can see it's pretty clean. Give it a little rinse. And what I like to do, just really thin slices of razor. I think they have like a really beautiful, sweet flavor to them. Gently pan-seared is great, but raw is the way to go. Gooey duck. Gooey duck are definitely some of the more unique looking shellfish that we're going to be working with today. This is a West Coast shellfish. They're the largest burrowing clam, very sought after, well known in the
That's a
community.
peanut.
First steps when looking to prepare a gooey duck,
Don't say that.
you're going to need to purge it. Basically, you're going to submerge it in salt water for at least an hour. Your next step is going to be a quick blanch in some boiling water, 15 seconds right into an ice bath. This will allow the gooey duck to separate from the shell. Also will allow us to remove any extra membranes that might be tough and make the preparation of the gooey duck more difficult. So let's blanch it now. Our gooey duck is now blanched, and we're gonna point the opening of the shell out to you.
It's called
Come in
flaccid.
here
That's
and put your knife right up against that
What the
shell
fuck
and
is
really just
this?
follow that line. You want to be very careful to not puncture the actual meat of the
I've
gooey duck.
heard of
Once
this.
that side
I
is free,
thought it was
do the
like a
same
joke.
exact thing up on the
Also,
other
I
side
didn't know it was produced gooey duck.
until everything is freed. We'll free this little part here. See, this is your gooey duck. Out of the shell, there are a few parts here that we're not going to want to eat. This siphon has a membrane over it, so it gets connected down from all the way at the bottom. You'll just release some of the extra
You know, there's
and just
this thing.
start to peel it off.
It's called circumcision.
In this rounded area, you're gonna have the stomach and the back.
What is
So we're gonna remove
this?
that. And you can see it kind of hangs off. We're just gonna come in and go straight down like that. And we'll do the same thing to the other side.
No.
So this will go. This will get split pretty much into these sections here. We're gonna wanna open this siphon up, just to ensure that there's no sand or grit or
I
anything
thought
like
it
that.
was a
Making
joke.
sure to make shallow cuts.
I didn't know
just
this is a
enough to
real
get it open. I
thing.
don't wanna cut it directly in half.
That's a
So in there we
fucking.
can see a little bit of sand and just pour it off. And we have some extra organs in here that we're gonna wanna clean up. So just gently with the tip of your knife, you're gonna run it just along the edges. It is hollow right behind it, so your knife will slip through.
I've
You're gonna be
heard
careful.
references of like
And to the
oysters
other
or
side.
clams too. You
And
know,
we'll
the
just
woman
straight
version
down
of this. I didn't know that.
and trim the edges there. You'll notice some discoloration on the siphon itself here when you're working with the product
Discoloration
from
on-
live to finish. So if we get some salt here and some water, we can actually
Oh,
use
no.
that salt to
Oh.
scrub the outside, rinse off any excess salt, and you can see already the color is starting to brighten up on them. Slice it super thin, enjoy it raw. It's just a clam.
Enjoy
Don't
it
let
raw.
its appearance deter you from picking one up if you see them. Cockle.
No fucking way.
Cockles have been described as more complex than hard-shell clams. They just have an extra level of savory, an extra level of umami, an extra level of ocean goodness. Similar to an oyster, we will go in where the hinge meets, and we're just gonna wiggle, just wiggle until you feel that pop. It's just that.
What the
You're
fuck?
gonna run the knife really tightly along the top shell there. Do it to both sides, and you're gonna free up any little bit of meat. On the bottom there, you'll do the same thing, cutting the muscle that connects the cockle. There you have a shucked cockle. Abalone. Abalone is a type of sea snail, super well known and sought after for their really white, firm meat, which can be quite expensive, and also for their really gorgeous mother of pearl shells. Really beautiful creature.
That's a horseshoe.
So, to prepare
That's
an
that's
abalone,
that's the
what
foot
I
of
like
a
to do
horse.
I'll
What the
take
fuck is
a
that?
Offset spatula, blunted object, and you just go in around the sides of the shell
Abalone.
and start freeing up the meat. Getting under that
That's what an
membrane
abalone looks
as
like.
best as you
Abalone.
can
Oh,
until
no.
it is freed up from the shell. So when you pop the abalone out of the shell, you'll see just a stunning array of colors on the inside of their shell, and you'll see a hot mess of a shellfish in front of you. I'm gonna show you how to clean that up now. The white meat here is what you're gonna wanna get at. There are some organs around it. Those all just come right off, and just by hand, start peeling off extra stuff
That looks
here.
disgusting. I don't want to eat that.
And this meat is just really, really firm, really beautiful. We'll give it a quick little rinse just to get off some of this extra stuff. So using a small paring knife, I'm essentially just gonna start trimming any little extra black parts. Should come off if you just scrape it. That's a shucked, cleaned, and trimmed abalone. Conch. This is a type of sea snail. They live 20 to 30 years actually, so they get fairly big as they get older. They actually grow with their shell. So first you want to identify your crown of spikes. They'll have one larger one here, something a little smaller, and then a tiny one around the spiral. What you're gonna need to do is make a hole in the shell between the second and third. Well, you wanna just sort of tap slightly, just breaking away little pieces at a time. From here, I'm gonna use my offset spatula, something without an edge, and I'm just gonna go along the top of the shell and just sort of run the spatula along that shell, just to free
I
up
would
the seam
not
from
be able to
inside.
do any of the things he's
Just take
doing
your time.
for two reasons. First, I'm gonna hurt myself.
Going on all different
Second,
angles.
I'm gonna break whatever the fuck I was using.
There we go.
I would
With a grip
probably
of that
break
foot,
the spatula thing that
and
he's
just
using.
start to pull it out. Down here, this is a hard shell. You're just going to trim that away. You just want to trim away any sort of dark stuff on there. You are left with a really nice, firm piece of shellfish that lends itself really well to being sliced very, very thin. I mean, this is great for sashimi, but I mean, I suggest almost all shellfish be tried raw at least once. And that's how you prep a conch. West Coast sea urchin. So they're covered in spines. This is essentially their defense mechanism. It's how they move around. It's how they capture food that they're gonna get. They have a set of extremely delicious roe sacks within them that most people will know as uni. You wanna be very careful not to get pricked by the spines. Handle them gently. Flip them over. That is the urchin's mouth. I like to use a little paring knife for this, and we're just gonna go right around where the mouth is and just free that up for us so we can get our scissor in. There will be a fair amount of liquid. And again, I'm not going super deep. You just want to be enough so that it's free. We'll take a bowl, and we're just going to dump out any liquid that's in there. And we'll pull the beak out. We're just going to dump all that out. If you look closely, there are some divisions
Just try
within
it. If
the
you
way
don't
that
get
the
it,
urchin
try again.
is set up. If you wanna take
Yeah,
those
I guess I
shears,
could do
get
that,
in
but
kind of in between one of those sections.
I'm pretty sure at the end of the day, I'm
Just
just
make
gonna
it
wreck everything. By the way, hi.
Another
I
one
didn't
on
notice someone
the
was
other side.
watching. I was looking at my
And we're
phone,
just
but apparently
looking
the chat doesn't update on my phone.
pretty much
It's so
between
weird.
these two cuts and just start trimming.
I gotta get this thing fixed, huh?
And they kind of just peel right off. You can see already the really beautiful bright orange roe that's starting to expose itself. And just all of this is in the way, so we're just gonna get rid of that. Pretty much can just shake it
I
out.
really have this issue where I just
your
get too
finger.
focused on whatever I'm doing.
To use a little
If I'm
offset
watching, I'm
spatula.
just so focused on
Just
watching.
free anything up that's getting stuck. Being super mindful of those really
Bad
delicate
habits,
roe
but-
sacks that you don't want to disturb. You can really start seeing them now. Take a slotted spoon where the roe sack was attached to that top layer. You'll come in the tip of your spoon and pretty much just start scooping them out. And they pretty much just hug the side of the urchin. So you just want to follow the same shape that the urchin has naturally. I'm gonna take the roe sacks, my spatula and my spoon, and just gently drop them into the water. Get in there with your hand, shake them a little bit, very gently, just to knock off any of that extra organs that are on there. You are ready to enjoy one of the most delicious
Has
things
anyone
in the sea.
tried sea
Sea
urchin? I'm
urchin.
curious. What does this
You can
taste
put it on
like?
your
It looks
table
like
so.
something
Just
that would be sweet.
super delicious. East Coast sea urchin. Looks really different than the West Coast variety, but the procedure's still exactly the same. Turn it around onto its back, only using the very, very tip of my knife. And we're just gonna dump out all of the excess liquid and seawater, and we'll pull the beak out. We're gonna go in straight across.
I really need to get a second monitor
Same
just so
thing.
I could really keep track of chat and not
The
have to
opposite
use my
side.
phone.
And then we're gonna start working our way around removing the bottom section. Not going too deep.
But right now I'm
not
just
rushing.
switching windows.
We're gonna dump out, again, any excess
Really?
liquid that's in here. Oh, one guy already fall out.
Would
They want it.
if you were to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate?
You remove
Sea
any
urchin.
of those extra organs that are stuck on there. Submerge this into water, and we'll start retrieving these roe sacks. And there, really gorgeous East Coast sea urchin roe. Nothing's better
I'm
than
actually
this, honestly.
curious. Oh, I
This is great.
feel like I want to try
So,
it, but
hopefully
if I
today
see it, I'll
I've,
probably like back out. I also want to call out, aside from this how to fillet every fish, every other video on Epic Curious was, I have not really watched it, probably like played in other. Yeah, damn. Now I want to try it. It'd be dope. Slice every. I don't know why this is my mood right now. It's not even just tuna. Earlier in the stream, I was just watching tuna get filleted.
I'm Eli Cairo
But then
from
it just
Olympia Provisions. I'm going to show you how
got
to
in
cut
here.
and serve
Oh.
every type of charcuterie. The word charcuterie means cooked flesh in its origin, and it is the way to preserve meats. Let's get into our first category, dry cured meats. The most simple but yet difficult of all of the charcuterie techniques. It is salted and very simply flavored, usually with no spice whatsoever. This is an
Prosciutto.
Italian ham from Parma in Emilio Reggiano. The prosciutto is cured bone-in back leg of the pigs. What you're looking for at a prosciutto when it is sliced is that it is evenly cured, meaning that it has a nice even color of pink through it, and the fat is pure white. The Italians, they're very, very proud of this product. They say there's only 4 ingredients that go into prosciutto di Parma. That is Italian pork, Italian sea salt,
Why am I
air,
so
and
intrigued by
thyme.
this? This is
The
not
most
even
classic
like
pairing
remotely
is
close
prosciutto and melon.
to
However,
my field of
I like
study.
to serve it with whatever fruit
I'm a
that is in
computer
season
science
at the
student.
time. Grab the prosciutto.
I don't know why I'm watching
Very
food
simply
stuff.
fold it over, drape it over your piece of fruit, drizzle it with a little bit of olive oil, because why not? And enjoy it. It's almost like the Italian peanut butter and jelly. You get this amazing melon or fruit flavor, and then you have this salty, fatty extra layer behind it. It just makes it unbelievable.
You just made pineapple on pizza
Copa
so much
is
different.
one of the most sought after
That's
cuts
kinda
on
weird.
the entire pig for a charcuterie maker. This is the neck of the pig. It is the only cut on the entire hog that is naturally 30% fat. That is the magic fat to lean ratio that charcuterie makers use. Copa, getting this sliced at the deli, just ask them to slice it slightly thinner than a quarter. They'll understand. You could do the old classic, that, they'll get you. Ooh, that's what you're looking
Oh,
for.
I think I fucked up
A
my
nice
stream.
full piece. It's holding
That's
together.
unfortunate.
It's not separating. That's kind of the perfect slice of copa. Feel like I'm working back at the deli. Boom. Let's roll. When plating, I like to start in the middle. I take my first piece, probably at 12 o'clock there, and I fold it over. Then the second piece, right to the left of it, fold it over, and continue that all the way around, rotating the plate as you go. And then you do 2 or 3 more in the middle, and you have yourself the most classic traditional plate of copa. Right back to Italy. Copa is one of those products that I like to make a simple cheese fruit plate with. A Robiola cheese is from Piedmont. With a good bloomy rind cheese, the molds on the outside are to be consumed. Take a piece of the copa,
Cheese is just
a piece
fermented
of the cheese
milk,
on top of it.
right?
You could either have
Kind of?
some cherries on top like
It's just
that,
really
or some
dry.
just to snack on the
Baked
side.
milk.
And then you take
It's a loaf
piece
of
the
milk.
honeycomb, kind of drizzle a little bit of the honey all over it. Life is good.
Meat, cherries, and cheese. That's like my relationship.
Yeah, it honestly takes you away. This is
Like
spend,
so
an
sweet
hour
with
with your friends, family,
not-
enjoying, eating,
probably
repeating,
not gonna
talking
be
about
everyone's
honeycomb,
taste,
think about
but
cherry,
looks really
chocolate,
fancy.
confinement or on a farm. These pigs, the second it gets weaned, is away from its mother, is left out into a pasture, into a forest. It's eating grasses, herbs, and most famously, it is foraging for acorns and chestnuts. It creates a one-of-a-kind flavor that we
I
haven't
got
been
up to
able
3 viewers.
replicate.
I did
The outside
not
of it holds
notice.
its own little micro world of beautiful grays and blue molds that actually
Dope.
preserves it, allows
I
it
guess
to
that
dry
means I'm
evenly,
starting
and
to
imparts an
hatch
amazing flavor inside of it.
Viewers.
This specific knife we have here
Kind
is
of.
a carving knife for the Homonavir.
Am I?
It's very,
Maybe.
very thin, super sharp. It also has these
Make a difference?
grooves in
No.
it, so the
I'm
hand will
just
slide over it
pressing
and not get stuck
go
onto
live
the knife.
stuff.
In cutting a Hamon Iberico, it in itself is an art. I am by no means an expert at this, but I sure do love doing it. They're actual experts at
I guess
carving
it's
plates
to
that
be
they can do
expected.
extremely
He's
quickly.
a pretty,
and with such a valuable
pretty
piece of
well
meat like
knowledgeable
this,
guy.
I wouldn't necessarily try this at home, kids. With something as special as this product, I like to serve absolutely nothing with it. Don't screw up perfection. Oh my God, it's unbelievable. What is very, very traditional is a really salty almond with it. But yeah, don't put anything on this. It doesn't need it. Don't get fancy with it. Just serve it and enjoy it because it's amazing. Deli meats, also known as lunch meats or cold cuts, are already cooked, so you can eat them right off of the slicer. Salami koto translates into cooked salami, not cured salami, so that is why it is in the deli selections. This comes from the shoulder
Salami
and
koto.
fat back from the
As a Filipino, that sounds so different. It kind of sounds like you're saying, "This is my salami." Nothing.
big. I
Just a
like to
small
slice
thing
it
I wanted
thin.
to point
You're gonna
out.
want to remove the casing. Make a little cut, then just remove it off. When you're looking at a salami koto, you want to see fat dispersed throughout it with good separation from the lean meat. On this one too, we're seeing big chunks of black pepper, which means you're going to get nice black pepper bites in the middle of it. This one we slice a little bit thicker than a coin, and then very simply we lay them flat across the bottom.
If
This
I
is
was to
amazing
have
by
one of these,
itself.
I'm
It goes
probably
unbelievable
stacking
on a
like
pizza. It
5
is an
pieces
absolute
of it every
essential
time before
ingredient
I
on a
eat it.
grinder sandwich. But this is the way I like to serve it at my house with a salad on top. It's super easy. Grab really fresh, delicious arugula, spread it over the top of it. Castelfranco olives, crush the olives and the seed will pop right out. Sprinkle it around. And then real easy with lemon on top. Drizzle with olive oil. And of course, crunchy salt over the top of it.
You just ate
Salami
leaves.
koto is so herbaceous, has all the big black peppercorns, all the amazing flavors of herb. And then arugula has that really amazing peppery crunchiness to it. And then
Why
you
does
get
that
these little
sound like a
bursts
cartoon
of,
villain? Oh
lemon
wait,
in
no,
there.
it's
It's just a
Ursula.
super simple salad. Some say
Mortadella.
the king of all sausages. It is one of the most difficult deli meats or even difficult cured meats to make consistent and perfect every single time. It is really, really tricky because you're making a full emulsification. An emulsification is when you take lean meat and you make it into a paste and then you fold in fat. It's essentially the same process I always say as making mayonnaise. It has sweet spices, cinnamon, cloves, a little bit of nutmeg. I speckle it with fatback, pistachios, and whole black peppercorns. To dice it, remove the casing. I like to do it in about ½ inch, nice little chunk. Try to slice it straight. Boy, that's beautiful. Then just cross cut it, and then just cut it into nice little squares. We're gonna slice a few too. This is a meat that you would like to slice a little bit on the thicker side because it has all these amazing textures in it. Little folds here and there. We'll take the diced mortadella, we'll place that right in the middle there. For this, I like to use an extra sharp Parmesan, and I like to use a potato pillar to get chunky slices, and then simply parsley leaves spread across the top, just for a little bit of parsley bright flavor.
I would munch on this.
Between a bite of pistachios and a little
It's
bit of the
cheese
Parmesan
meat
that
and a
has
little
hard
bit of
texture.
parsley.
It's so
Who would
simple,
not?
but yet so flavorful, and it's kind of mind-boggling. Some people
Pork
may
roll.
call it a Taylor ham. Its origins comes from Trenton, New Jersey. In this pork roll,
These are just
we
hot
have
dogs,
pork,
right? Massive
fat,
hot
tons
dogs.
of
That's what I
salt,
would just call
brown
them.
sugar maple. It's
Big hot
also
dog.
fermented, so
Bigger
it's
hot
tangy,
dog.
and it's seasoned just with white pepper.
Really big hot
So
dog.
you're going to remove the casing. I love fermented and smoked meats because it
Oh, smoked
in a
meat
weird
is
way, it
different.
instantly reminds me to step it into an old deli. So you cut it into 1/8 of an inch, nice rounds. You want to cut a few slots down the side. I like to use a little bit of oil and a little bit of butter because health. This should roughly take just 2 minutes on each side. Traditionally, it is served on a hard roll. So I butter up both sides. Gotta have a cup of coffee because it's breakfast. We're gonna put one layer of folded American cheese. Right now, you can add your bread, toast it up. Put that on top of your bread. Go ahead and add your eggs. It's gonna be a little quick scramble. Cover
Yes, I
that
got the
right
picture,
onto the
I'm
top of
coming
it.
with you
Put
till
your lid on top.
Maria count me
There
in.
you have it. An
There's
egg and
a
cheese
story
pork roll
at the
sandwich,
bottom of
classic.
this bottle, and I'm a pen. Make it count.
You're definitely coming back to that deli. You just can't screw with that flavor. If you think of charcuterie, you don't necessarily think of a
Feels
sandwich.
like
A
stealing
pork roll is
hearts
such a classic
calling
meat
in
for a breakfast sandwich. You have to do this.
Cause I got a picture, I'm going
This
with
is a
you.
shelf-stable meat, meaning it doesn't need any refrigeration whatsoever. But instead of using plastic, I like to dip it in wax to keep all of the oxygen out of it, so it'll last, in theory, forever. Its origins are from Europe. The farmers would make this out of their pigs in the wintertime, ferment it, and then they would be able to consume it in the summertime. This sausage is made from trim and fatback. The way I remove the wax, if you get one that is in wax, is just chop off the end, chop them into rounds, or cut it down the side, and then go ahead and just peel the wax off of the casing just like that.
Is the wax
and then
edible?
cut in 2 rounds.
I would
Summer
assume not.
sausage to me is one of the most nostalgic cured meats in the entire world. It tastes sour, it's
I'm gonna sound
smoky,
ignorant,
and it
but I
has
swear these are
usually a
just the same
mustard seed or
sausages
a
in the
chili
United
flake
States.
in
They
it.
all
I
look
like
like
to
poop to me.
pair this just really
Oh, is that
classic
beer?
and simple. Saltines, dill pickle, delicious cheddar, and obviously a nice pint of beer.
Hey, yeah, I agree with
Pickles.
it. A little bit of
Oh, yeah.
salty sausage, maybe some cheese. Sounds so good. Maybe not the
Oh my
crackers
god, that
part,
is so
but I would
good.
have the crackers.
Don't screw with the classics, people. I'm gonna go finish this beer. You guys can just hang out. Pepperettes or smoked pepperoni sticks. You think of the ones that
That's
you go into
hot
a gas
dog.
station and buy
That's
right
a
off the
that's a hot
counter.
dog that you cook
Very
out and then
classic
you
American
let it
style deli
get
meat.
cold with
This
wrinkles
is
up.
not
That's what
something
that
that
looks
really you need to prep. This is already ready to go. You grab them, you take them out of the package, you shove them into the mouth, you eat them, you chew them, you enjoy it. Life is great. That is why they go so well with, say, these types of cheeses. Baby Bell, for example. Perfect. When you bite into it, you can tell that it has fresh spices in it. This one has caraway, black pepper, a little chili flake, all of which goes really good with a mild fatty cheese. Salami is a ground sausage that is fermented and dry cured. Salami is shelf stable, but it does need refrigeration to keep it in perfect form. Here we have salami Etna. This product here is been made in Sicily.
Isn't that
underneath,
the tiny person that
volcano
made the
of Etna
Incredible
for
suits?
centuries. In Sicily, they are very famous for their
Etna
citrus,
mode.
their pistachios, and their sea salt. And so if you take this product, it is everything you would find on the island of Sicily to make a beautiful, unique salami. Salami is leg meat of the pig or the ham, and
That's what
100%
Etna
of
is,
the
man.
fat back.
Etna
What you
mode.
see on the outside here is live active mold. Mold is super important in quality salamis because it gives it its flavor. So these are natural casings. They are double sewn casings, and it is also in a net. You're going to remove the net. You're going to see these mold spores come off of it. That is live mold. You want to slice these really thin because it is hard. Kind of droops over itself. That's about where I like my salami. I like to keep it
Okay,
very
that looks
simple. I
disgusting.
love the flavor of a dried or fresh
I'm
pig when
sorry
it has
if I
beautiful
sound
sweet roundness,
ignorant,
isn't
but
too
that looks
dominant in the
disgusting.
flavor, because the salami Etna really is
It looks like you
subtly
left
sweetened.
it out to dust for years.
take a
It
bite
looks
of
like
the
a
pig.
PC that has not been cleaned for months.
A good quality salami, it should instantly start melting, and then a bite of the fruity fig just kind of like cleans
What
the
is that
palate up so you
made
can
of?
return back to it and enjoy it.
It says live mold. That does not
Here
assure
we
me.
have saucisson de aro. Like other salamis, this is made with pork leg and fatback. Saucisson de aro is a French-style salami. It
These
is
are
one of my
weird.
favorite salamis
Okay, I
ever
get it.
made
Cheese
because it's
is
only
mold,
seasoned with
basically.
pork
I don't
and
eat
sea
every
salt
cheese.
and
I eat
mold.
some.
They're so proud of their pigs in this region of France that they protected that if you make a salami from this region, you're not allowed to cover the flavor of the pork with any other spices. I use a knife, no need for a slicer on this. Cut it at a bias, roughly the thickness of a quarter. This mold has a little bit more of a yellow. Throughout the year, you'll see variation in the molds. That is kind of the beauty of live
Is it
living salami
edible?
made with active molds. One of my favorite ways to use this sausage is to have it side by side with the bloomy rind cheese. You use the tip of your knife and you're removing the top of the cheese. Then you take about a teaspoon of garlic, about a teaspoon of white wine. I'm gonna put it in the oven at 350 degrees for about 15 minutes. Yeah, this is all gooey and delicious, as you can see. At this point, I like to slice a little bit of apple with it. Give it a beautiful stir with your salami. Oh my God. You're tasting amazing pork, and you get this warm, melty cheese that has the slightest note of spruce and a piney flavor to it. And the moldiness and the funkiness of this cheese really goes so amazing with this. It's a pairing of just true, unique flavors that you would only get in live active products.
So these kind of things exist, and I love it, which is the reason why.
It's spreadable because as you make it, you take the trim parts of a pig, belly meat, shoulder, and then you add up to 60% fat to this product. So after it ferments and dries and it's hardened, there's so much fat in this that it still stays spreadable. When you say andouilla, the origins of it are Spanish. The casing from this is not edible. Just cut off the chunk that you're going to use, and then you can place
I was
this
probably
back in your
not listening to the past because I'm
slice the
too.
casing down the long way, and then go
I'm
ahead and
too
remove
shocked
the entire
by
casing.
the fact that there's
Andouilla has a
actual
million
mold.
different ways to use it. You can throw it into a pan and do mussels. It melts really well. You can bake it onto flatbreads, but it's also just unbelievable by itself spread on bread. Grab a little bit of butter. We're doing the darn thing. Grab a little bit of your andouilla, spread it across.
I would have just
Oh my
like
gosh.
chopped
Or it's
like
seasoned with
pieces of
spice
it
and has
on
an
the
amazing
thing.
pork flavor to it, and it is fermented, so it has a little bit of tang on the outside of it. It would be essentially a chorizo butter. It's unbelievable.
Chorizo.
Chorizo Andalusia from Andalusia, Spain. This is a dry fermented chorizo. There are, I would say, thousands of different types of dry cured chorizos in Spain and Portugal. This one has smoked paprika, sweet paprika, a little bit of garlic, and clove in it. Chorizo, as opposed to other salamis, it usually uses shoulder meat and other fats besides fat back. It's important to know if you have a natural casing on the outside or if you have live mold. This one you can tell is a natural casing, so you can consume it. Cut the tip off and then slightly slice it at a bias, roughly the thickness of a quarter. Here we have some olives, we have some manchego, we have some peppers, and we have our favorite oil-cured anchovies. We're gonna take chorizo Andalusia.
I've
piece of
never tried
manchego right
anchovies.
through the middle
I'm
of
always
it.
curious what
We're
it
gonna
is.
wrap a oil-cured anchovy onto it, and then an olive, and that'll be your first variation of it. And for the next one, we'll do a more of a classic one, chorizo, mild but crunchy pickled peppers, and then the anchovy on top of it.
That looks so good.
It's
Except for
amazing
the
salty
mold part.
fleshiness in the end of it. I could eat so many of those. It's unbelievable.
Okay,
Rosette
okay,
Oregon.
that's
This is
the
the
thing.
salami that I produce that I am the most proud of. This salami kind of represents everything that I've been trying to do in the meat industry since I've started. All of the pork that I use in this is from a network of farmers that have every one of their pigs out on pasture. That's the model that's actually going to be sustainable for us to carry on making pork the right way in America. I like to cut it on a bias, take off the tip. You can see it has this really dark color from it. Part of that is the wine, but part of it is also that these pigs spend their entire life out in the field moving around. It gives it a higher muscle density
put
and changes
wine?
the color of the meat as well. This blue cheese from Rogue River down south,
Okay.
it's 100% organic. The salami, place a little blue cheese on the cracker.
The sausage thing, salami stuff. I would
Blue cheese
probably
and
do
hazelnut.
blue cheese. No.
The first thing you notice about this salami is the mouthfeel. It's very slightly subtle
looks
with
like it's
juniper and
alive.
rosemary. This blue
looks like
cheese has
varicose
a bright
veins.
pop of mold and crazy
I'm sorry,
flavors.
it just
Hazelnuts
does.
are one of my favorite nuts to eat with fatty salamis or cheese because the tannins kind of clean your palate and allow you to eat more. These cooked smoked meats, they're more moist and they will have other flavorings in them, spices, smoke, and other seasonings. Here we have capicola. This is a roasted meat,
Gabagooey.
salted with a little bit of seasoning, black pepper and
What is
chili
that?
flake into it. This is the neck of the pig. It is one of the most sought after pieces of the entire pig for a charcuterie maker. It is so brilliant because it actually has naturally 30% fat in it. This is one of the pieces of meat you should slice with
That
a
looks
slicer.
like
You
seasoned
want this
piece of
roughly
meat that
the
is yet to
thickness
become.
no larger than a
That,
quarter,
you,
right?
that,
Roughly
you,
the
that you're
size.
still to
It should hold together.
you're
Once
still
you got the sliced
going
meats,
to put in a
I'd
smoker
like
before you
to
eat it.
kind of show off the patterns of it if possible. I really enjoy this with the crunch of onions. And then I love capers and olive oil for this.
What is capers?
A little extra olive oil because, as we said, we're enjoying life. And then pecorino. This is sheep's cheese. I like to take my potato
Now
filler.
I'm curious, what's the
Get little
different kind
rounds
of
all over
cheese?
it. That
I know
naturally
like
makes it
mozzarella,
the right
parmesan,
texture. You know, it's not too thick. It'll melt.
parmigiano
To eat
reggiano.
it, make sure you get some onion, caper, and cheese.
That one.
Roll it all together. So good. It has a depth of flavor to it. It's just not just pork and salt.
But I don't.
This you have a little
really
coriander notes, black
differentiate
pepper,
mozzarella
and a little bit of
from
chili
cheddar.
flake for heat. It's very balanced.
From
It shouldn't be
parmesan.
over-dominating, and it shouldn't be too salty.
There should be.
Sweetheart
different
ham.
Oh,
This
there
is a
is.
sirloin tip ham. This is the top
Well,
of
what's
the
the
leg
cheese one
where
after this?
it meets with the pork loin. It's called a sweetheart ham because in the South, initially where this name came from, it was just enough ham for you and your sweetheart. We like to use apple wood and a little bit of hickory to smoke it. The apple wood gives it a really amazing buttery texture. It is an amazing ham because it is so diverse. You can slice it into big steaks, griddle it for breakfast. It makes the greatest breakfast ham. You can slice it thin, use it on a sandwich. It is also just delicious enough to make a ham plate. I like to serve it on a baguette. This is non-salted butter, a little crunchy salt
Baguette.
on top. Just one little pickle, because I'm that kind of guy. Just a
Not
little
putting the
crunch
pickle
on
in, but
there,
I wanna try that.
and that is not
This
going
I want to
too
try right now if I could, but I can't.
The ham, when you taste it, the first thing you get is this amazing moisture and texture. You have a lot of beautiful aromatics that are subtle in there, and then of course the very faint but beautiful smoke that's on there, and it absolutely goes perfect with the butter and the bread and the crunchy pickle. You have to try this. We'll make a ton. We have a ton of these. Please try this. You guys need to try this. Landrauchschinken means country,
Landrauch.
land, rauch, smoke, schinken, ham. Country smoked ham. This is my personal favorite
That's
smoked
German,
meat
right?
of all time. In America, we sometimes call
That
it a
has to be German.
Schwarzwälder ham or a Westphalia ham. It comes from Switzerland originally. This version of it, which is also very traditional, is the entire loin of the pig. This one smokes with apple wood and a little bit of hickory for about 18 hours. If you get a whole chunk like that, you need to check to see if it still has a skin on. You would take a knife and cut it. Just slice very thinly.
I
Definitely
like
keep
pork.
this, and you would add it to your beans or anything else. You can slice this with a knife, but I recommend getting it sliced at a deli. I like to grab the skin side, very similar, and fold it over. Make nice little just ribbons with it. It is a very, very rich piece of meat. I like to serve this with a crunchy, delicious salad. My favorite is remoulade. It goes amazing with this, and that is thinly sliced celery root, Gruyere cheese, also from Switzerland. I like to almost do equal parts cheese to celery. Healthy amount of chives, a little bit of creme fraiche, good amount of salt, and then a dollop of mustard. You mix this together.
I don't care if
place
that was
it
celery.
right
This
on
looks
top.
good.
Grab your Gruyere and celery mustard, make a little roll. Oh my goodness. That was my type of salad. The meat by itself is an amazing flavor, a beautiful smoke, and you have that caramel on the outside of it. It has a little bit of rosemary, black pepper, and juniper on it that just adds like a little background hint. It's like a flavor roller coaster. Gruyere is a very mild cheese. It lets the meat flavor shine. I like the salad on it as just a little bright, crunchy side note to it. Confit is considered the oldest form of charcuterie. It is a simple process of seasoning meat, slowly cooking it in its own fat to preserve it, then covering it with more fat to keep oxygen away from it. This duck confit is made from duck legs. You add salt, shallots, parsley, and spices, usually white pepper, black pepper, a little bit of cinnamon, and clove. This is fully cooked. I'm gonna show you how to crisp it up and eat it warm. Heat a pan on medium heat. You're gonna take a good amount of your duck fat into your pan. Once your fat is nice and warm, you're gonna take your duck leg and you're gonna place it skin side down into the pan and give it a nice little press into it. That'll slowly render and turn into a crispy cracker on your warm confit. I like to pour the warm duck fat on the other side as well. As those are crisping up, I'll start my salad. This is frisée, a wonderful chicory.
I'll
I
just
take
put it
raw
up and I'll
shallots,
have rice with it. I'm Filipino.
a
I'm
squeeze
Asian.
of lemon,
I'm
a
Filipino.
pinch of salt, and a drizzle of
I'll
olive
take
oil.
the duck, put some rice
Mix
on
that
it.
up. Now that they're nice and browned,
Ooh,
flip it over.
that's
Should
good.
be crunchy, which they are.
Dude, this
Gonna
makes
let
me
it warm
hungry
up
now.
Just a second on the other side as well.
But I don't want to
Once
eat
I
a
feel like
lot
it's
because
warm,
I've been
I'll remove it to my cutting board. pull it
going to
apart,
practices,
get it off the
and it
bone. All
also
you have
kind
to
of
do
helps
is add
lose
that
some
into your
weight.
salad. Perfectly
But
fat,
yeah.
moistened, crunchy duck confit. My favorite thing is when you get a warm piece of crunchy duck skin on top of the lettuce. It's like the best crouton you've ever had in a salad for sure.
Crouton? Is it crouton
Duck
bread?
rillette.
Duck rillette.
I know this may look like pudding right now, but that right on top is actually the duck fat. Duck rillette is the confit legs pulled off of the bone, hand chopped, and then the duck fat folded back into the chopped meat, placed in the ramekin, and then covered with a layer of fat to preserve it. It's considered to be one of the first butters in the whole world. Originally, we would use this to moisten bread in the same ways that we would butter. When you serve duck rillette,
I am
like to take it out of the
salivating right
refrigerator
now.
for about an hour
That
before you
sounded
use it
so
to
good.
allow it
I love
to
it.
get to room temp. Spread it on
I mean,
top
it looks disgusting.
of your
It looks
toast.
weird.
I'm gonna put a little bit of cherry gelée, a little smear, crunchy, flaky sea salt, and that's it. That is so delicious. The duck confit has a natural gamey richness to it, and a little bit of the sweet cherry kind of just makes it the most rounded flavor. How could you go wrong with crunchy bread, spreadable duck, and sweet cherry gelée?
I'm
The
gonna
key
go
elements
ahead
of
if I
a
get-
pate is usually ground.
And I'll just
It has
go get
offal,
water.
usually liver. It is seasoned with some kind of booze or alcohol and is highly flavored in what we call the pate spices: cinnamon, clove, nutmeg. Pistachio pate. This has a very distinct look to it. On the outside, you're gonna see this marbling. That is caul fat. That is the lining of the pig's stomach. We line the tureen with the inside of the belly. When it poaches, the fat renders and keeps it extra moist. So this pate is made with pork trim, pork shoulder, offal, that could be liver, kidney, pork fat, panade, which is bread and cream, shallot, cooked down in booze. Pate is traditionally served with 3 condiments: a little bit of whole grain mustard, chunk of pate, and a pickle on the side. The most important thing about pate is texture. It needs to resemble meat, melt in your mouth. From a flavor perspective, it has to have the flavor of liver or offal, but you don't want it to hit you over the head with a livery flavor, and it's got to be smooth and creamy, no graininess, no texture whatsoever. The pickle really plays as a palate cleanser, a little chunk of bright, crunchy pickle, and you're back for more pate. Here we have pork liver mousse. On top, we have a layer of lard. That's to keep the oxygen away from the pate to help preserve it. I'm going to remove it from the tureen. I like to just kind of move it, take a knife around the outside. Underneath the fat is actually where the pork liver mousse is. Liver mousse is probably not the gateway pate if you're just getting into pate for the first time. It is definitely very offally. What you're looking for from a quality perspective is that it is nice and smooth. It doesn't have any graininess that is on the outside, and it is an even color all the way through. As you slice them, it should just be perfectly spreadable. This is one of those products that you celebrate the flavor of the liver. Pork liver, all the other livers are very irony and remind you of that liver flavor. I like to use a big crunchy bread with it. Here we have focaccia, just an amazing springy light bread, and then a bitter lemony salad to remove all of the flavor of the liver out of your mouth. It is super simple. I like a little bitter radicchio, a little squeeze of lemon, drizzle of olive oil, tiny amount of salt. I think it's kind of fun to plate these directly onto the board. You can see it's really nice and smooth and easily spreadable. Then I like to drizzle each one of them with extra olive oil. And with most all livery mousses, I love a nice crunchy salt on top to give it that little bright bite. A little bitter greens. To me, this is kind of like the perfect lunch. The liver mousse is just so creamy, so delicious. A bite of iron from the liver, nice and spicy with a slight hint of wine in the background. Here we have foie gras torchon. When you say the word torchon, that is the French word for a kitchen towel. That is what we use to wrap this in when we form it. Foie gras is a fatty liver from either a goose or a duck. France produces about 80% of the world's foie gras, as well as consumes about 80% of the world's foie gras. I like to serve my foie gras on brioche bread that has been buttered and toasted. Remove the edges, and then I cut them into foie gras size cuts.
I read something about foie gras,
Try your
forgot
hardest to
about
get a
it.
really sharp knife because it's
But something
super
about
delicate.
it's not
Slice it
like
into
should be
rounds. What
like
you're gonna
should
see
not
for
be
a high quality
ish.
foie gras is that it is even and you're not seeing any specks of sinew or blood. Personally, I love a little boozy pitless cherry on top of it. Crunchy sea salt for a little salty pop. There is honestly nothing quite like foie gras. It is the most light and delicate liver ever made. The fruity sweetness covers up and blends so well with the little livery flavor, and then the crunchy salt, absolute perfect little pop. Although we didn't go through every type of charcuterie, the cutting and serving techniques that we showed you here could be used for thousands of types of charcuterie. All you have to do now is invite some friends over and have a party. Meat maker, out. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it was banned in countries because it was like abuse. Because you were basically forcing the animal until it gets to a very unhealthy state, or their liver at least.
Hi, I'm Ann Saxelby, founder and co-owner of Saxelby Cheesemongers, and I'm here today to show you how to serve every cheese. We're going to talk about how to cut, serve, and store cheeses, and what are the best accompaniments to serve each cheese with. Parmigiano Reggiano.
Well, this is the one I was trying to
king
say
of cheese.
earlier.
So this is probably the best known
What?
Parmigiano Reggiano, aka the king of cheese. So this is probably the best known example of a cooked pressed cheese. Cooked pressed cheeses are cooked to higher temperatures. They tend to be quite firm and are aged for a very long time. To best serve Parmigiano Reggiano, you would likely want to use a small hard cheese knife like this one. It's really great for getting at hard cheeses to either slice them or kind of chisel them off. So to cut this Parmigiano Reggiano, I'm just going to get right in there and chisel this cheese off along its natural fault lines. This is one of the most fun cheeses to cut and serve because you don't have to worry about creating smooth, even slices. You can see these little white crystalline bits. And these crystals are actually clusters of proteins or amino acids that recalcify during the aging process. So the longer the Parmigiano Reggiano ages, the more intense and kind of ubiquitous those protein clusters will be. When serving Parmigiano Reggiano, or really any cheese, you want to serve it at room temperature. Cheeses taken right out of the fridge can actually have flavors that seem a little muted or almost stunted, and that's because the cold really kind of locks up the fat where the flavor lives. So when you're serving a cheese at room temperature, you're allowing the flavor to really fully express itself. When you're planning a party or a cheese board, a great general rule of thumb is 2 ounces of cheese per person. Both Parmigiano Reggiano and balsamic vinegar come from the same region of Italy. If it grows together, it goes together. Parmigiano Reggiano is a very rich aged cheese, and it has buttery flavors, toast, and then dunk the cheese in. Another thing that you can pair Parmigiano Reggiano with is fresh fruit, like fresh figs. Again, because the figs are sweet but not too sweet and have kind of an earthy character as well, it just makes a fantastic pairing with the cheese. This is Gruyere, possibly Switzerland's most famous cheese. Gruyere is also an Alpine style cheese. So Alpine style refers to any cheeses that are made in the Alps or made in the same style of cheese that are made in the Alps. Alpine style cheeses like Gruyere or raclette are fabulous melters. So even though this is a very big slice, you can get a nice little slice off, even with a tiny knife like this, so long as it's sharp. If you need to balance your knife, you can do so with the front finger as well as the back one. The rind of Gruyere is actually not so pleasant. People always ask, when do you eat the rind of different cheeses? And the answer is basically this: unless the rind is made from wax, bark, or cloth, you can always eat it. It's just up to you whether or not you like the taste. I would cut the rind off in a slice like this. To serve the Gruyere with a cheese planer, you literally take the wedge and you drag the cheese planer across, and you get these wonderful, thin, papery slices. An architect friend of mine once said that everything in life is about surface area. And when you're talking about a cheese like this, it is 100% true. I would challenge anybody who's watching this video to slice this cheese both ways, taste both, and note the differences. In a bigger chunk like this, it's super rich, but also very fudgy, and very dense, and very hearty. Conversely, when you eat one of these little paper thin slices, it literally melts on your tongue. So good. You can put it out on a cheese board with full grain mustard and cornichons, and maybe also some bread on the side, and it is delicious.
Want to have another small piece?
Havarti, Denmark's most famous cheese. Here we have a Havarti actually with some dill in it. Because it's made from whole cow's milk, and because it has kind of a fresh, creamy, milky flavor, pretty much anything you pair with it is going to be great. Havarti tends to be semi-firm, very pliant, almost a little bit buttery, so it's not quite as cooked and not quite as pressed. When serving Havarti, it's great to use just a simple, sharp chef's knife. And I cannot overstate how important it is to have at least one sharp knife in your house. When you're slicing the Havarti, it's best to literally just start at the end and make some clean, even slices. There's really nothing fancy. Havarti is, I think, the world's ultimate snacking cheese. We've chosen to pair it with crackers, which is a very simple but effective pairing. Butter cracker and seeded cracker. With Havarti, simple is best. This is raclette. This cheese isn't quite as firm as the other cooked pressed cheeses we've seen, like Parmigiano Reggiano or Gruyere, but it shares with Gruyere its meltability. Raclette was really built to melt. In fact, the verb racler in French means to scrape, because the traditional way to serve this cheese is actually to melt it and scrape it on top of roasted potatoes or bread. Raclette is a raw cow's milk cheese, meaning that it's made from milk that hasn't been pasteurized. Raw milk cheese, when it's made from milk that is coming from healthy animals and being produced in sanitary facilities, not only makes tastier cheeses, but it's arguably better for our bodies too. I like to start by slicing a little bit off the front and then cut rectangular shaped wedges off the back. The rind of raclette is absolutely delicious. Put those onto these paddles here and put them under this raclette machine. What we have here is a machine that has a little heat lamp essentially under this grill top, and so the cheese is actually going to be broiled. This is a cheese fork, which would usually be used to pick up and spear little pieces of cheese on a cheese plate, but for this instance, while the raclette is cooking and bubbling here on these paddles, I'm going to put boiled potatoes and the salami onto the top of the raclette machine. So that gets nice and hot. And it's tempting to pour the cheese off before it's fully cooked, but it's really, really worth waiting until you can actually see the cheese almost kind of jumping around. The cheese is melted until it's almost translucent and these big undulating bubbles are forming. So that tells me it's the right time. So I'm gonna put some of my potatoes on the plate here, as well as this salami, and this is the moment everyone waits for. You pour the raclette onto the salami and potatoes in a nice buttery sheet, and voila, your perfect plate of raclette is ready. This is tête de moine, a raw cow's milk cheese from Switzerland. And the thing that makes tête de moine different and distinctive is its shape and size. So it has the signature nuttiness of the cooked pressed cheese family, but it's also washed with brine, which makes it a little bit more pungent and a little funky. In French, the word for rind is croûte, which means crust. It's kind of like the crust of the bread, but it's the crust of the cheese. But with cheeses like this that are more aged, the rind can be pretty strong and pretty earthy. It's not going to be the tastiest to eat. So we're going to remove that part, and I'm using my chef's knife and just rocking it back and forth slowly to try to get a nice, even cut. In French, tête de moine means head of the monk. The Swiss, when they invented this cheese, it reminded them of seeing the top of a monk's head, because monks would traditionally shave the top of their head and leave a little ring of hair around the outside. There is a special way to serve tête de moine that deserves recognition. This little contraption is called a girolle, and it was invented solely to serve this cheese. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to try to find the middle, and then with gentle, even pressure, push the wheel down until it rests on the bottom. This can't be done with just any cheese. If you tried to stick a different cheese that was more acidic onto this blade, it will crumble and fall apart. So now what we're going to do is put the blade down here onto the pin and start twirling. And as we twirl, you can see these beautiful little florets of cheese starting to form. A nice little flowery shape. I'm gonna make another one for good measure. If you don't eat the whole wheel of cheese, which is understandable because there's quite a lot of it, you can always take the rest of the cheese and store it in your refrigerator. Since cheese is a delicate matrix of fat, water, and protein, if you put it in the freezer, it denatures that balance and it's gonna change the texture. So always store your cheese in the fridge, either in foil or parchment paper. We deliberately chose not to pair the tête de moine with anything. These delicate florets of cheese, they just melt in your mouth and really express the flavor of this cheese. It is just delicious. That texture is absolutely unique. This is Swallowtail Tome, our first uncooked pressed cheese. Uncooked pressed cheeses are cooked to slightly lower temperatures during the cheese-making process, and they are consequently a little bit softer in texture and age a little bit faster. So the Swallowtail Tome is also an example of a tome-style cheese, a category of cheese that is semi-firm, a little bit sour in texture, that are covered with the tail tome. And really, when you're
But hey, if
slicing
it's
any
edible
cheese,
and
you
it
should
doesn't
start from
really
the
kill you
center and
unless
kind
you're
of cut
lactose
even
intolerant.
slices that radiate
Sorry
out
for
from
you
the center.
guys.
All cheeses ripen from the outside in. The
That's-
molds and bacteria and fungi that are present on the rind
If
actually
it
break
works,
down
don't
the
fix
fat
it,
and the
yeah?
protein in the cheese and create flavor and ripen it over time. The outside of the cheese is going to be the first part to ripen, and the inside of the cheese is going to be the last part to ripen. So when you cut an even slice that has an even distribution of outside and inside, you're going to be tasting kind of the full spectrum of flavor. I said I like to eat the rind, but I don't like to eat all the rind. Again, this is personal preference, but what I would do is cut off this big chunk of rind here and leave a little bit on the back. And though I wouldn't normally eat it like this, if I was eating it myself, I would start here and probably end up here. Just to demonstrate how delicious this rind is, I'm gonna start with the rind first. The rind is absolutely delicious. It's kind of like the crust of bread.
You're
We've chosen
eating
to
mold,
pair
mate.
cherries with the Swallowtail Tome. These cheeses tend to be kind of tart and yogurty, so just as you can imagine eating fresh cherries with your yogurt, it's a beautiful pairing with the cheese. This is goat tome. This is another example of an uncooked pressed cheese. This goat tome has a beautiful earthy rind that's actually dappled with yellow molds as well. When the cheesemaker started making this cheese, he didn't necessarily intend for this exact mold to be on the surface, but when he built his cellar and put the young wheels of cheese down there, this was the type of mold that grew on the surface, and over the years has become kind of the signature mold of his farm and his cheeses. We can take a nice thin slice, and I'm going to cut the rind off of one side, but I'm gonna leave the rind on the back. It's wonderful to have the interplay of different flavors that come from different fermented foods. Of course, bread and salami are both examples of cured fermented foods. And then to top it off, we have some sweet cherry preserves, which just add a touch of sweetness.
I am weirded out now.
This is Bismarck, a cloth-bound sheep's milk cheddar that's made in Vermont and aged in Brooklyn. Bismarck is a cloth-bound sheep's milk cheddar, and so it has the same characteristics that you would expect from a cheddar. It's sharp, it's tangy, it's a little bit nutty. Sheep's milk has about twice the butter fat of
Cloth-bound
cow or
cheddar.
goat's milk in it. It adds a roundness to the cheese and a fullness on the palate, and it also adds, for lack of a better word, a slightly sheepy flavor to the overall cheese. The tradition of
Tastes like
binding
sheep.
cheddar in cloth is definitely one that dates back to the 1800s. It allows the cheese to breathe, which allows it to develop different distinctive flavors, and it also protects it. If any cheese is coated with wax, cloth, or bark, you do not want to eat the rind. So to make this cheese a little bit easier to slice, we can actually just peel the cloth coating off of it. And if I'm going to use my chef knife and try to make a long, even cut, I can slice it like this. If I want to use the smaller knife, it's going to be difficult to get kind of an even, longer slice, but you can also cut little chunks off the front that are going to be perfectly tasty. Cheddar is a wonderful cheese to serve with apples and dried raisiny grapes. The sharpness and the tart qualities of the cheese are a perfect foil to kind of the crisp acidity and the juiciness of the apples. This is Shelburne cheddar, a raw cow's milk cheddar from Vermont. Cheddar cheeses can be bound in cloth and cave aged, or they can also be aged in cryovac. Aging the cheese in the cryovac bags means that it's aging without oxygen, which results in a cheddar that has a very toothsome, fudgy, dense texture and a very potent, sharp flavor. To me, that always leans a little bit more towards an oniony or allium sharpness. When I slice the Shelburne cheddar, I always like to slice in thin slices and then cut into squares or into rectangles rather than cubes. For me, a big cube of cheddar can just be a little bit overwhelming. Cheddar cheese, especially ones like this Shelburne cheddar, are so versatile in the kitchen. You can cook with these as well as put them on a cheese board. You can do things like grilled cheese, mac and cheese, nachos, chili. The world is your oyster. I like to pair cheddar cheeses like this with dried fruits and fresh fruits, like dried apricots and these fresh purple grapes. This is manchego. This is an example of a waxed cheese. You can see that the rind is coated with a very thin paraffin wax, and it's also got this distinctive basket pattern on the outside, which is a signature element of manchego. Manchego is a pure sheep's milk cheese that's made in Spain, and it's a name-protected cheese, meaning it has to be made within a certain geographic region. When you slice a block of manchego like this, you can do it from top to bottom. Sometimes it can be intimidating to cut a big slice of cheese like this. I'm going to show you how to do it just so you know, and then I'm going to show you another way. It's really important to line up the knife so that you have a good amount overhanging the front that you can press your fingers down onto. This is going to give you the confidence you need to slice through this kind of firm, tall wedge of cheese. So you just use even pressure on the front and the back, all the way down. If that seems like it's too tall or too difficult or too crazy or whatever, another way to slice this manchego would be to turn it on its side and cut the bottom rind off and cut the cheese into more triangular slices. You could even slice them in half again to make them a little bit more narrow. You could choose to leave this rind on the back, or if you don't trust people not to eat it, you could do them the service of cutting it off. The most classic quintessential pairing for manchego is membrillo. Membrillo is actually a jelly that is made from the cooked pulp of the quince fruit. The cheese is so dense, it's buttery, it's nutty, it's a little sheepy and woolly, for lack of a better word. And then when you pair it with this intense
I hate it when
sweetness
they
of
do
the
that. It
quince,
just
it
gets
forms
me.
this incredible mouthful.
They do the check
This is an
thing.
aged Gouda that has been aged between 12 and 18 months, made from raw cow's milk. Gouda originates in Holland and actually takes its name from the town of Gouda, which is actually pronounced Gouda. Young Gouda tends to be creamy and buttery and mild, but the longer Gouda ages, the sweeter it gets. This is a medium-aged example, I would say, between 12 and 18 months, but Gouda can be aged as long as 5 or even 7 years. Back in the day when the Dutch were trading with everybody all over the world, they were also the first to export their cheeses and their butter overseas. They discovered coating the cheese in wax sealed in the moisture, allowed the cheese to age for a longer time, and protected it during the long and kind of arduous voyage. The wax coating also makes the resulting cheese creamier. Because no oxygen can get in, all of that moisture and creaminess is trapped
wanna
inside the
go get
wheel as
food
it's
real
aging.
quick. I'm
You
just
can
gonna
cut it like this,
cook
off
some
the front,
stuff.
or you could also cut it like this, from front to back. If you're going to slice it with a cheese planer, you can drag the cheese slicer over it like this and serve the cheese this way. And in extra aged Goudas, that sweetness can translate to an almost kind of butterscotchy, dulce de leche, or toffee kind of flavor. So I've decided to pair the Gouda with something equally sweet as almost kind of a dessert course. So there is both dark chocolate and toffee. The dark chocolate is an incredible match for this cheese because the tannic, rich earthiness, as well as the slight sweetness, are a perfect foil to that dulce de leche caramely sweetness in the cheese. And the toffee also creates a really formidable pairing because of the toasted nuts and the caramelized sugars. This is brie, which is a part of the bloomy rind or mold ripened cheese family. When we talk about bloomy rind or mold ripened cheeses, We're talking about any cheese that is covered with this kind of white, fluffy mold or a white, wrinkly mold, which is actually beneficial, totally safe to eat, and very tasty. The mold that grows on the outside of the cheese is literally breaking down the fat and the protein in the cheese and ripening it from the outside in. So when we're serving a bloomy rind or mold ripened cheese, the best tool to use is a sharp knife. I have a boning knife, which is a very narrow and sharp blade. And then I have this soft cheese knife, which has some holes in it, as well as a fork at the top, which you can use to spear the piece of cheese that you've just cut and serve it. So when you're cutting into a cheese like this, you can either start by cutting it in half and then taking kind of slices out of it, almost like you would a cake or a pie or a pizza, or you can start by taking sort of a Pac-Man type wedge out of the middle. I'm gonna start by doing that, because that can make for a fun presentation on a cheese board. You cut a little bit of the cheese, but then you can allow your guests to see the interior of the cheese. The center is still a little bit firmer and even has some little holes in it, where the places that are closer to the exterior of the cheese are a little softer and gooier and have started to break down. I recommend taking the cheese out about an hour before you're gonna serve it. If you forget and don't have an hour, a quick cheat is to turn your oven on to like 300 or so and turn it off, and then stick your cheese in there just for a few minutes and take it out. And that will allow it to warm up a little bit. You can pair brie with many different kinds of accompaniments, but today I've chosen strawberry, which adds a pop of really vibrant, beautiful red color, as well as sweetness, which really goes well with the kind of buttery and creamy quality of the cheese, as well as this honey mixed with toasted hazelnuts and pistachios. The sweetness of the honey and the saltiness and crunch of the toasted nuts really offset the creamy, buttery qualities of brie. This is camembert. Camembert is known for its gooey, buttery texture, as well as for its oftentimes pungent flavor and aroma. Aromas of certain bloomy rind cheeses like this camembert have been described as being part of the brassica family, so similar to broccoli or cauliflower, or sometimes even cabbage, which sounds crazy until you smell or eat a cheese like this, and then you realize that there's actually some of those funky, pungent, earthy flavors there. To show you the difference between how two similar bloomy rind cheeses ripen, I wanted to show the brie that we just served, as well as the camembert that you see here. So this is my wheel of brie, which you can see is a younger cheese. And the reason you can see that is because the rind is very white, very even, you can tell that this camembert is more ripe and is also going to taste stronger. To serve this camembert, I've chosen pecans and pears. The pecans are, of course, going to add a little bit of crunch, but also a little bit of a sweet, toasty flavor. And the pear is going to add a little bit of a crisp acidity along with a mild sweetness. I'm going to cut it in half, and you can see that this camembert is quite ripe. The interior of the cheese is kind of uniformly gooey, which means that the cheese is fully ripened from the outside in. This is going to mean that the camembert has a really nice, full, intense flavor. So you can smear a dollop of the camembert right on top of this pecan, or you can also serve a little bit on top of a slice of pear. This is coupole, an example of a bloomy rind or mold ripened goat's milk cheese. The rind of this coupole is completely edible. Goat's milk, for lack of a better word, has a musky or almost goaty flavor to it. I happen to love goat cheese. When serving soft bloomy rind or mold ripened cheeses, you can use a boning knife or a soft cheese knife, or you can also pick up a kind of fancier tool like this. This is called a harp wire. It just makes you look like a pro. You can literally just cut through the center of the cheese, and look at that. It's just like a beautiful, perfect cut. And from there, you can slice and dice the cheese in many different ways and get very accurate and very beautiful slices. Bloomy rind goat's milk cheeses like coupole have kind of a lactic quality to them, which for me kind of equates to a yogurty, fresh taste. And so when you're serving cheese like that, it's nice to have some bright accompaniments. I've chosen the marmalade, which of course has very citrusy and zesty and bright flavors, as well as fresh figs, which are going to be juicier and a little bit sweeter, and then these dried fruit and nut crackers, which also complement the goat's milk flavors. I'm going to make a bite, a perfect bite of the coupole goat cheese on the cracker and with a little dollop of marmalade on top. This is gorgonzola, the most famous Italian blue cheese. Blue cheeses like gorgonzola are very recognizable because they are full of these beautiful blue veins. Contrary to what many people believe, blue cheeses are not injected with this blue mold. Rather, the cheesemaker will pierce the cheese or poke holes in it, and the oxygen that's entering the cheese allows the blue mold to grow. So here we can actually see in this piece of gorgonzola, there are different holes here, and that is literally the cheesemaker coming along with a stainless steel spike and spiking the cheese in order to let that blue grow. The blue mold is delicious and edible. This knife is a special Italian blue cheese knife that I picked up on my travels to Italy. It allows you to slice through the cheese, and then when you get to the bottom of the cheese, it's not gonna get stuck on the table, forcing you to kind of wiggle it around. It's going to allow you to just create a beautiful cut. And you'll see that when I've cut through the blue, a little bit of cheese does get stuck to the surface of the knife, but the thinness of the blade is designed to minimize that. I chose to serve the gorgonzola with honeycomb, which is of course a sweet pairing, as well as toasted walnuts. So I'm going to use my soft cheese knife and slice myself off a little wedge of blue. This piece really doesn't have much blue veining. I'm going to cheat and cut myself a piece that has a nice little vein of blue in it because I happen to really enjoy that earthy, stronger flavor. I'm going to put that on the bread. And then I'm going to use the soft cheese knife to slice into the honeycomb. Honeycomb tends to be a little expensive, but it is totally worth it if you want to kind of go all out and create a really fun, beautiful cheese board. This is Roquefort, arguably the most famous blue cheese in the world. Roquefort is a French blue cheese made from raw sheep's milk and was one of the first cheeses to receive an AOC or DOP name protection, meaning that the cheese can only be made in a certain region from a certain breed of sheep and following certain specifications following how the cheese is made. Roquefort has an absolutely irresistible buttery texture. The flavors imparted by the blue mold include kind of creamy, fruity, peppery, and earthy flavors that just combine to make this cheese absolutely unique and incredible. When you're cutting Roquefort or other blue cheeses, it can be tricky to do because they can crumble easily. I'm going to cut the cheese with the harp wire, and look how easily I can slice this cheese. And it just creates a perfectly even wedge. From there, I'm going to cut slices like this. Oftentimes with blue cheeses, you will see a slight rosy or pinkish color under the rind. It's just a natural result of the ripening process. I've decided to serve the Roquefort today with a classic combo, a French baguette and butter. Blue cheese can be kind of contentious, and many people think that all blue cheeses are going to be very strong, very intense, and that they don't like them. But if you mellow out the blue cheese with a little bit of butter, you are just going to be in heaven. Not going to be fancy about this. Literally going to rip the baguette open. Any butter will do, but if you can find good butter at the supermarket, it might be worth investing in slightly fancier butter than usual. Butter can be just as complex and delicious as cheese. I'm not going to go there all the way right now, but the importance of good butter cannot be underestimated. So I'm literally going to take my butter, smear it on my bread. And Roquefort can be kind of sticky and a little stinky and kind of muss up your fingers. So this is a great excuse to use the little fork on the end of your cheese knife. You can literally pick up the wedge like this, put it on your bread, and dig in. This is a Poisse, a washed rind cow's milk cheese from France. Washed rind cheeses are the stinkers of the cheese family. They are easily recognizable because they tend to have reddish or orangey rinds, and of course, when you smell them, there's some pungency and some really aromatic things happening there. Washed rind cheeses can be washed with any number of things. The most common thing is a saltwater brine, but beer, wine, or any kind of spirits also work as well. A Poisse happens to be washed with Marc de Bourgogne, which is a special spirit that is made from the pressed red grapes from Burgundy wine. So this special wash
bearing
helps to
food.
develop a
Wait, let me just
distinctive
remove
and
the
rich flavor. With
thing.
washed rind cheeses like a Poisse, you definitely want to eat the rind. The rind is a very important and integral part of the flavor.
I have
Cheese
gum
becomes
bearing
tremendously
snacks.
gooey and runny
I just
as
made
it ages.
toast, honestly.
If you take it out of the box, there's a chance that it's going to get stuck to the box and will be kind of awkward to get out. And you don't even need to do that because to serve this, you can simply dig in a cheese spreader, scoop out a dollop, and put it onto something like bread,
I just,
or in
like,
this case,
put
we've
butter
chosen
and
potato
then
chips. An unconventional cheese pairing,
the bread
perhaps.
on
There's
top
kind of
of
a
it.
high-low thing happening here with the fancy cheese, but it is so satisfying. A Poisse tends to be creamy, fruity, and a little bit barnyardy. And by barnyardy, I mean you can kind of taste the cow, but in a good way. And so having that salty, toasty potato chip to serve it on is a perfect match. Take your gooey dollop of a poisse, put it on your potato chip, and watch the fireworks happen in your brain when you eat it. This is Windermere, a raw cow's milk wash rind cheese made in Vermont. The thing that makes it distinctive and special is the fact that it's wrapped in this spruce bark. This is a tradition that originated in France and Switzerland with cheeses like Vacheron Mont-d'Or and Forster-Käse. So Windermere is a seasonal cheese. It's only available each year from January through April because the farmers want to use that butterfat-rich winter milk to make it. The bark is actually from the cambium layer of the tree, which is not the hard outer bark. Rather, it is the soft inner bark just below the surface that actually is used for nutrients to travel up and down. The soft inner bark is harvested from the trees, cut into strips, and then dried. Before it's put onto each wheel, the cheesemakers will sanitize it by boiling it, and boiling it also makes it flexible again. They then wrap the spruce bands around the cheese and put a little rubber band around them to keep them from falling off during the aging process. The bark permeates the cheese and really creates a wonderful array of flavors, from smoked meat to pine to juniper, and sometimes even a mustardy flavor. Windermere is an example of a cheese where you do not want to eat the rind around the outside. So, to serve Windermere or any bark-wrapped cheese, the best way to do it is to cut the top rind off, and I'm just using a sharp chef's knife to do this. And then you literally can peel the top rind away, and from there, the interior of the cheese is almost like a custardy cheese pudding. And I am literally going to unabashedly dig in with a spoon, smear it on a baguette, and chow down. This cheese is so rich and complex and delicious that a simple sliced baguette is all it needs. This is mozzarella. Mozzarella is a fresh cheese. They're the simplest cheeses to make, they take the least amount of time to age, and they're the most simple in flavor. In Italy, in order to call the cheese mozzarella, it has to be made from the milk of the water buffalo. If the mozzarella is made from cow's milk, it's called fior di latte. So technically all of our American mozzarella is actually fior di latte. You can slice and serve mozzarella in a few different ways. The simplest way, of course, is to use your chef's knife, and you can simply slice it like this. Another way that you can cut the mozzarella, if you don't want to slice it with a knife, is using a box grater. It's one of the best cheese tools you can have. This side over here has these wider openings that are perfect for shredding mozzarella. If you're gonna be plating it the way that I am today, making a little caprese salad, you probably don't need to use this because it makes such thin slices. But if you're gonna be using the mozzarella to make dishes like lasagna or topping a pasta that you're gonna bake in the oven, this is a great tool to use because you're gonna get nice, feathery, even, light slices, which are great for baking. The thinner they are, the quicker they're going to bake, and they'll get kind of browned and bubbly on the top. But for today, I'm going to plate the mozzarella in a very simple way with fresh tomatoes and basil. And finally, you can dust it with a little bit of sea salt. You drizzle a little bit of olive oil on top, and voila. This is ricotta. Ricotta is one of the world's most popular fresh cheeses. The ricotta that I have here today is made from whole cow's milk, but ricotta can be made from sheep's milk, goat's milk, water buffalo milk, just about any milk you choose. Since ricotta is such a simple and versatile fresh cheese, you can serve it with a lot of different things, both sweet and savory. But today I've decided to serve this ricotta with a little bit of buckwheat honey and lemon zest to turn it into a sweeter, almost a breakfasty type of dish. So we're going to start by drizzling the buckwheat honey onto the ricotta, and then I'm going to zest a little bit of lemon on top of that. Just give it a little bit of acidity and added character. And after, I'm going to use a cheese spreader here, smear it on a fresh baguette, and enjoy. This is fresh chèvre, or fresh goat cheese. Fresh cheeses of this kind were probably among the first cheeses that humans ever made. Dates make a wonderful pairing for chèvre. Take your cheese spreader or soft cheese knife, dig in. You can literally just scoop the fresh chèvre into the middle of the date. The date provides all the sweetness you need, and the cheese being so tangy and tart, it makes a wonderful and contrasting pairing. This is burrata, arguably one of everyone's favorite cheeses, but I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. The reason people love burrata is actually because of what's inside the burrata. Burrata is mozzarella that is stretched and shaped into a purse and then filled with stracciatella. And what is stracciatella? Strings of mozzarella in salted heavy cream. The problem was, how do you get these strings of mozzarella in salted heavy cream to the person who's going to be using it? And someone came up with the genius idea of forming a pouch of mozzarella and literally stuffing it full of this delicious stuff. So I'm going to cut into the burrata with a boning knife. You'll notice that wonderful stracciatella coming out. I love to serve burrata with prosciutto, which is of course a classic Italian cured ham, and a little bit of bread. So I'm literally gonna take the bread, cut a nice generous slice of burrata. Try to cup the cheese like this so that all of the good creamy inside of the cheese doesn't spill out everywhere. And you can put that on top of your slice of bread. Dress it up with
I'll
a few
probably just
little
finish
bits
this
of prosciutto.
video and
sprinkle it
we're
with a little
good.
salt and pepper. And finally,
Oh,
you
shit.
can drizzle a little olive oil on
Haven't-
top, and your perfect bite
Oh,
of burrata
the
is ready
thingy
to
has
go.
been there all along. Forgot to remove it.
This is provola. Provola is a fresh cheese that is part of the pasta filata family, but the difference between provola and other pasta filata cheeses is that it is firmer and a little bit more aged. Provola and provolone are related. The only difference
will
is
be
that
ending this in a
provola
bit.
is
I'll
a
just finish
smaller
this video.
loaf like this, and provolone tends to be very large format provolas. When slicing provola or cheeses like this, a chef's knife is the best tool to use because the cheese is actually quite firm, and so you're gonna want a larger knife to help you cut all the way through it. I'm gonna slice off kind of the end piece here. You can actually eat this cheese outside and all, but it's gonna be a little bit dry for making a sandwich with. I would take this cheese and grate it and turn it into a macaroni and cheese shaved over top of salad or shaved over pasta. But so we're gonna take our provola, make nice thin slices if possible, or it can be salted and aged for more time, in which case it's gonna develop a stronger and saltier flavor. Today, I'm gonna serve queso fresco in a very simple way, crumbled over fresh watermelon with a little bit of mint. Sometimes in the dead of summer, eating a bunch of cheese doesn't sound like the best idea, but a very fresh, bright, acidic cheese like queso fresco is a very refreshing and delicious summer dish. You simply chunk off a little bit of the queso fresco, and we're going to crumble it on top of the watermelon. I'm going to dress my queso fresco salad with a bit of fresh mint simply by ripping the leaves and putting them on top. And then all you need is a fork to dig in and enjoy. This is feta, a fresh cheese that was originally made in Greece but is now made in many places across the world. The thing that makes feta different from other fresh cheeses is the fact that it is packed and aged in a salt brine. Feta was one of the earliest cheeses made by humans, and it was made in a climate that was warmer. So packing the feta and aging it in salt brine meant that it could keep for a long period of time. Today I'm going to slice the feta with my chef's knife, just into neat slices, and then I'm going to plate it with the olives. Feta and olives are also a great combination because they're from the same part of the world. And so these two foods have evolved over time and complement each other in a beautiful way. Crumble the feta, and then finally we will drizzle with a little olive oil. This type of dish is a perfect thing to bring to a picnic or also as an appetizer to start off dinner. This is labna. Labna is a very dense, thick, and creamy Middle Eastern style cheese that effectively
I'm
blurs
still
the line
amazed by
between
the fact
yogurt
that we just
and
watched
cheese. It is
almost
very
every video we
bright,
could find of
tart,
this.
tangy, almost lemony.
But I guess I'll
because
do
you
the
start
same
with
thing
whole
for
milk,
a different
it is
day.
irresistibly
I will
creamy.
be busy
Labna can be
these
served
next
with a
few
variety of fresh
days,
herbs
weeks.
or dry
You know,
herbs,
finals
and
is
I've
coming
decided
up.
today to serve it with a little bit of
Projects
za'atar,
need
which
to
is a
be
wonderful
done.
Middle Eastern spice blend that really complements that creamy, tangy quality of the cheese. Gently sprinkle it on top and then drizzle with olive oil. This is farmer cheese, typically a very fresh white cheese that is not pressed or aged. It has a very fluffy texture and a very creamy but subtle flavor. So it's a great blank canvas for a wide range of flavors. Today, we're going to serve it with a little bit of dill and salt and pepper and essentially create our own little party dip. I'm going to start by chopping up this fresh dill, put a little bit of the dill on the top, as well as a little bit of sea salt, and then some crushed black pepper to finish it off. Mix the herbs in. You can enjoy the farmer cheese all on its own or with a crispy bread like pretzels, crackers, or a toasted baguette. This is mascarpone, pronounced mascarpone in Italian. This is a double or triple creme cheese that originated in the Lombardy region of Italy. The terms double cream and triple cream in cheese refer to the overall percentage of butterfat in the cheese. A double cream cheese has anywhere from 60 to 74% butterfat, and a triple cream cheese has 75% butterfat or more, meaning these cheeses are luscious and creamy and silky and decadent. So today I'm gonna top the mascarpone with assorted fresh berries, raspberries, blackberries, and blueberries, and crumble some of the thyme on top. And we're going to dip in some crusty flatbread. Yum. This is halloumi. Traditional halloumi is a semi-firm, fresh cheese that's made from a blend of goat and sheep's milk and sometimes cow's milk from the island of Cyprus. In order to be called halloumi, the cheese has to come from Cyprus and being made according to these traditions. The thing that makes halloumi distinctive and different from other fresh cheeses is the fact that it has a very low acidity and high melting point. So you can fry it or grill it and it won't lose its shape or texture. Here I have some grilled halloumi so you can see the difference between what the fresh, uncooked halloumi looks like and the grilled halloumi. You'll see that it browns and caramelizes in a beautiful way, and it oozes a little bit, but it definitely doesn't run and it holds its shape. You're gonna taste the milky and sweet flavors associated with fresh cheeses, but because the cheese really browns and caramelizes in the pan, you're also going to get some of those more sweet, caramely, and roasty toasty notes. And squeeze a little lemon juice on top, drizzle it with a touch of olive oil, and if it needs a little bit more salt or a little bit more of a punch, you can drizzle some fresh sea salt and black pepper on top as well. This is cotija. Cotija takes its name from the town of Cotija, which is located in the Michoacan province of Mexico. Cotija is a very salty, fresh cheese that's used to enhance flavor in many different dishes. We're gonna serve the cotija crumbled over corn with a little bit of cilantro as kind of
This
a
has to
nod
be
to
one of the
elote, which
most
is a very
normal
traditional
videos I've
Mexican
seen,
dish.
aside
Literally
from
can
the
just break off the cotija,
weird ass
crumble
looking
it
cheese
over top
at,
of the
at
corn,
the beginning.
and then we are going to just simply
Is
tear
it
the
the bones and
cilantro
stuff?
leaves as a garnish on top. There are thousands of different kinds of cheese. I wasn't able to show you every kind of cheese, but the information that I presented will allow you to share and enjoy an incredibly wide variety of cheese with your friends and family.
Anyway, we'll be ending that there. I don't know why I'd stream today. I just kind of felt like it, so I did. You know, if you feel like doing it, do it. As long as you're not really sacrificing too much, or you're not really costing something else. Do whatever the fuck you want. I have projects, but I know I can do them. I've been doing them. It's just that I'm taking a couple days off, some time to rest. Although I will be starting to look into it again later today, like 4 p.m. I'll probably do it later in the evening or tomorrow morning. I don't really know. But I did take a couple days off. Also, I am recovering. I can't really say recovering as I didn't really get injured. It's taking a rest from practice. And these coming few days, weeks, I would be doing projects and stuff, assignments, all that stuff. And I also have practices because of our upcoming school days, college days. It's like a sports fest thing, like our intramurals. I will be competing in volleyball for that, so I do have practice, which will make my entire week both a roller coaster of academic and extracurricular, and it's not gonna be fun. I did take a couple days off. This is one of them. I'll look into it. I'll look into the projects later. Anyway, I won't really get into detail with that. Thanks so much for everyone who came by the stream. I did see people come in, but they weren't really in the chat, so I couldn't really talk to them. I don't know if that's a thing. Could be just me. I'm still getting used to the actual streaming part because the last time I did this, I wasn't able to do it consistently because it happened to be one of the times where I had to get my mind straight for academics exams was coming up. And I did have a lot of activities to catch up on, but now, I'm starting to really get into it because I'm gonna have a little less time to actually do it. So whenever I do have the chance to do it, I will be doing it. Anyway, it's gonna be it for this stream. We started out with tuna getting filleted, and then we watched seafood, how to prepare them, and then we got into salami and then cheese. It wasn't a lot of videos, but streams like almost 3 hours. We're at 2:40, 2 hours and 40. But that will be it. Thanks so much for everyone who came by the stream. Really couldn't keep track of everything that's happening. I really need a second monitor for that. Even then, I will need a second monitor for just the activities alone because as a computer science student, I'm gonna benefit a lot from it. It's not really a requirement, it's just really nice to have. So it kind of makes everything easier. It's just keeping track of what you need to do, but other than that, that will be it for today. Yeah, GG's. I'll see you all maybe in like 1-2 weeks. I'll be very busy. I'll try and see if I could squeeze a little practice here and there. Be it for